Now we're up to number 5 here on Daf Nunam at Beis, the 5th source of Rabbi Akiva's wealth. Umin ishto shel Tunas Rufus. Now this came as a chiddush to me because I didn't know that Rabbi Akiva had another wife. This is his second wife, and she had been married to Turnus Rufus. There's a whole debate here about which Turnus Rufus this was, because the Turnus Rufus that made tremendous anguish and problems for Rabbi Akiva was also the one who ordered Rabbi Akiva's death. So this might be a different chap by a similar name. And Rabbi Akiva used to have debates with this Turnus Rufus in front of the Caesar, in front of the Caesar, with regard to different verses in the Torah and how to interpret them. And Rabbi Akiva would inevitably defeat this Turnus Rufus. And one time he came back, he was like embarrassed or angry. And his wife asked him, "Why do you look so sad?" And he told his wife that he constantly loses to Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva is like taunting him. So his wife suggests, you know what? Give me the okay, and I'll find a way of bringing him down, because the God of Israel doesn't tolerate immorality, sexual immorality. He'll be punished by the Almighty if he'll have an affair with me. So the husband gives her rishus, and she puts on all these, attractive clothing. She comes for Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva responds with 3 things: Rokak, Tzochak, Ubachak. He first spits, he cries, and he laughs. And she asked him why. He says, I can explain to you 2 out of the 3. One I have to keep secret. I spit because spit looks like sperm and in tipa srucha, and such an attractive woman really comes from tipa srucha. Bachisi, I cry because your beauty will be completely consumed after your death in the karka. You'll be, your body disintegrates. And the reason I'm smiling, I can't share with you. But Rabbi Akiva already saw in Ruach HaKodesh that this woman would be miskayer and that he would marry her. And he didn't want to tell her that. So she asked him, can she do tshuva? And Rabbi Akiva said yes. Even though she had done this terrible thing of trying to allure Rabbi Akiva into a sexual immoral act. She went ahead, she was miskayer, and she married him. She brought into the marriage a tremendous amount of money, and Rabbi Akiva again became rich, and now we're up to number 6. Umin K'tia bar Shalom. Now, what's the story here? The Caesar, the Caesar, was an anti-Semite. He wanted to destroy the Jewish people, and he asked all of his chashuvim in the Malchus and it says, Misha ololo basar mes beraglo umitztayer haim yiktes raglo v'yichya oshanicheu v'yitztayer. So he spoke to his chashuvim with a mashal, and he says, let's say you have a person whose leg is infected to such an extent that it jeopardizes his life. Should he amputate the leg and live? Or should he leave it and suffer and so forth until he dies? So the response was from these chashuvei malchus is yikta'en of yichya. He should have his leg amputated. And the subliminal message that they were conveying to the Caesar was that if the Jews agitate you, then just cut them off. Just kill them, decimate them. So K'tia made a following declaration. He says, you won't be able to destroy the Jewish people. Jewish people are metaphorically compared by Zechariah Novi to the Ruchos Hashamayim. As Zechariah says, Ki ke'arba Ruchos Hashamayim perasti eschem. Now, the world can't exist without these ruchos, so too the world will not exist without the Jewish people. And furthermore, if you're going to kill them, then your Malchus will be called Malchus Ketua. So the Kesar responded by said, look, you're saying the right things, but we have a chok, we have a law in our kingship that anyone who defeats the king in a debate is locked up in jail, and they bring Ofar into the jail, and they fill up the jail until he dies of suffocation. Now, when this fellow, Ktia Bar Sholem, was taken to this cell, which is called the Beis HaOfar, the Matronisa passed, and she said to him, Chaval al Hasfina shover selo meches. Again, they're talking in similes. Woe to the ship that passes without paying its taxes. What is the meaning of that statement? You're going to die because of the Jewish people. You might as well pay your tax, so to speak. You might as well be part of the Jewish people. If you're dying on their behalf, you should undergo gerus. So at that point, he somehow was able to do a milah on himself, a bris milah. It says here that he was mapilas atzmo rosh or loso, umolas es atzmo v'omer. He declares, hine shilamti meches. I've already paid my meches. And once the ship pays its tax, we let it go through. They threw him into the Beis HaOfar, and he made a declaration that he's giving all his possessions to Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Akiva's colleagues. So Rabbi Akiva came to the conclusion that half of his possessions would go to Rabbi Akiva, and the other half would be divided amongst his colleagues. Like we find by the Lechem Aponim, the Torah says, "V'hoisali Aaron ulebanim," that half it goes to Aaron and half to his banim. That's Gemara in Yuma and Daf Yud Zayin in Beis. So from these modes, Rabbi Akiva became very, very wealthy. The Gemara now brings another story about a sfina. Rav Gamda Yoiv Arba Zuzas Fune, and he paid a sum of 4 zuzim to the sailors, Lasuye Bahon Mida, to bring him something. And the sailors could not find something that was really of value to bring to Rav Gamda. Asyua Le Bahon Kofa. So they brought him a monkey. Ishtamit, the monkey got loose and ran away. Al lechorsa, and it went into a hole. So they started digging to try to unearth this monkey. V'yashkechu de revia al margalisa, and they found that the monkey was sitting on top of precious stones and pearls. Aitinun le kulhan. And the sailors brought this all to Rav Gamda, saying that, you deserve it because, we were paying you up with this monkey, and the monkey led to this beautiful, collection of expensive stones and pearls. Amalei bas Kesar l'Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya Torah mefor b'kli mechor. You're such a great scholar, and yet you're so ugly. Amallah. So Rabbi Yeshua responds to the bas Kesar, and he says, "Limdi mi beis avuch. Why don't we learn from your house, meaning from the house of the Caesar? he also takes something of significance and puts it into an ugly utensil. But memanichim, yayin, we have to add yayin, the base of vichake. So where do we store? What does your father use to store his expensive wine? Normally she responds, the money de pachra, which is called kli cheres. Now, I don't have to tell you that pottery is like the cheapest kind of material. Amallah. So Yeshua Chanani says, Kuli Alma, the whole Welt puts their wine into pachra, right, into pottery, earthenwood. Is vi'atun, the money de pachra. Do you also put your wine into a kli cheres? Kli cheres is ugly, it's cheap. Atun, you are very choshev, achitun, and yet you put your wine, but money de kasper de havle. It would be more appropriate for you, I would recommend, that you pour your wine and store it into silver and gold vessels. Oslas veromas chamra. So the Bas Kesar, following the logic of Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, went to place the water into, the wine into b'moni de kaspa v'dava, into kalim made of gold and silver, metallic kalim. Sorry, and the yayin became fermented and soured. Omar Lord, Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania says, Afo Raisa came. So too, in the metaphor, in the Nimshal, Torah is found in ugly people, like a kli cheres, like wine, expensive wine in a kli cheres. Va'ika shapirin ugemirin. So Gemara asks, there are good-looking people who study the Torah, whereas in wine you would never put wine into kli kesef, kli zo. Allah, so Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania responds to the Bas Kesar, Ihavi snu havi gamrina gemirin tfe. And Rabbi Yeshua says that these good-looking people who are studying Torah, had they been ugly, they would study even more Torah. And apparently, the Musar Haskell here is that if we, want to live an austere lifestyle, then we can steig away in Torah. But if we live a life of kli kesef, kli zav, it's very hard to devote oneself and dedicate oneself to Torah. A woman shows up in front of Rabbi Yehuda, this very sad story, Minarda, and now Rabbi Yehuda paskins that she has to pay. Amrle, I remember the old days, Shmuel Rabach, Shmuel your Rebbe, and Hachi Donin, would he have judged me the way you judge me? Omar Los, Rabbi Yehuda responds to this woman's claim, and he says to her, Yadato le. Do you know Shmuel? He was very eager of you to hear a description of the great Shmuel, his Rebbe. Oh, you knew my Rebbe. Yeah, but Amrale, she said he was not a very handsome man. I knew your Rebbe Gutza. He was a shrimp. Rabba Krese, he was very fat. Ukam, he had a dark complexion, which is, I guess, not something positive. Varabba Shine, he had very long teeth, very extended teeth. Omar Allah, so Rabbi Yehuda responds, He says, "Levzuye causes you came to be mavaz Shmuel tehevi hahi issa b'shamta." I'm putting you into a nidu, and paku mesa. She fell apart and she died. Now it's fascinating here that the Bach and the Mefarish, they claim, which I'm not finding it right now, but I'll find it hopefully, that she was, she wasn't trying to humiliate Shmuel. She was just describing the man as she knew him. But nevertheless, at the end of the day, she said some very disparaging comments about Shmuel, and Rabbi Yehuda, didn't tolerate this, and he offered her like a possibility of tshuva, but she apparently didn't want to, do tshuva, and then she falls apart. Okay, now after all this Haggadah, we go back to our Mishnah, and our Mishnah was talking about Konam Tavshil, and Tavshil includes what's called a Maisa Kedera Rach, because it's eaten together with bread. So the Konam prohibits the mudar from eating a Maisa Kedera Rach, but mutar b'oven. And mutar b'beitza termita. What's his beitza termita? My twin. Omar Shmuel, avda di ovidla, an eved, a servant, who knows how to prepare a beitza termita, shavi alfei dinris, worth 1,000 dinarim. It's a very difficult fach. And Shmuel now is going to explain to us what you have to do in order to create this beitza termita. Ma'ayala alpha zimni b'maya chamim. You have to take this beitza and dip it 1,000 times into boiling hot water. The alpha zimni maya krira, and 1,000 times in cold water. Now, I'm not sure if he did it b'ser again. Just 1 second. Let's just. Anyway, it took a great deal of expertise to do this. Adimit zutra, until it shrinks, shrivels up. Ki hechi, to such a small beitza that the velisa, you could actually swallow it like a pill without even chewing it. And it goes down into your body b'shleimusa. V'im is keva, if the person who swallows this beitza termita, if he has some sort of gastroenterological problem in his stomach, sarech hala. He says that sarech hala means that as he swallows this egg, the egg attaches itself to the injury in his intestines, v'kadnafka v'yasya. And when the egg comes out of his body, when he defecates, it leaves b'shleimusa, and it's now bringing out the petza. Now, I don't know what he means by this. Maybe it's a scab or something. Yoda asya, my sama misboile ubimai mitaze. And an expert physician would know which medicinal trufa would be beneficial and how he can use this trufa in order to be misrapid. And the Gemara tells us that Shmuel, when he had this petza in his stomach, in his intestines, and he wanted to check the petza, he wanted to know what would be the appropriate medicinal trufa. that he would need to take and administer in order to return to his health, havi bodek nafshe bekulcha. Okay, now I don't know what kulcha is. I'm not sure if anybody knows what kulcha is. He says on the bottom, Shmuel was a rofe mumche, as we know from many sugyas and shas. So what is kulcha? Oh, so the Ran says lo yadati. I don't know what it is. And Tosfos says that kulcha is a beitza termita, that which we've been learning about right here in the sugya. But as we said before, you needed a bucky to prepare this, to produce this beitza termita. In any event, when Shmuel swallowed this kulcha, he would then put his hand onto his stomach and see where it was hurting him. And Shmuel was in great pain when he swallowed this kulcha. Yisurim Gedolim, it says here. He literally collapsed from it. Adam is Satrin in Shibei Sealei Sarean. People started taking apart the hair on their head. So it's very fascinating that Shmuel was a great Rofe, but it seems from this Gemara that he was not successful with regard to the petza that he had in his Meyayim, applying a Beitza Termita. He just didn't have the knowledge of that particular medicine called Beitza Termita. Okay, now we have a din in Parshas Kitetse of Poel, that a Poel who's working out in the vines, he's allowed during his malacha to take from the grapes and eat them. And the Gemara says in Bamitzia that he has to eat only that which he's working with. So let's say he's working with grapes, he can eat grapes. If he's working with grapes and he wants to eat figs from his balabais, that he's not allowed to do. So, and now we quote a Mishnah, the second parak of Masros, with regard to a Pol Shaya Ose Beklufsid. Klufsid are kind of figs. Lo Yochal Bibnos Sheva. He's not allowed to eat another gender, another species of figs, which are called Bibnos Sheva. He says here in the name of the Rambam, Pirush Mishnais, and the Ra'av, that klufsin are min te'enim gruos. So again, even though technically he's allowed to eat these te'enim because he's a worker, and the Torah says, ki tovo b'kerem reach avachalta novim kinafshecha kisavecha. But the Mishnah says, I have to discourage you from eating benos sheva, those te'enim that are benos sheva, that are very, very detrimental to your health. Now, if he was working in benos sheva, lo yochal beklufsin. So even though these are both types of figs, nevertheless, they're considered like two different minim. And as we said before, if he's working on a novim, he's not allowed to eat te'enim. If he's also te'enim, he's not allowed to eat a novim. My klufsin was klufsin. Mina de te'eni di avdin mina hon lafte. This is a species of figs that they prepare for a tavshil. He gave his eved to his friend, like Mure, hoping that his friend would teach his eved Torah, but not really Torah in the strict sense, but rather alpha mine lifte, to help him out. He was overwhelmed. Because there are 1,000 different types of tavshilin that you can make from te'enim. Agmare, so he taught him to cook. Tamne mea, 800 types of tavshil. The azmane lidina. And now he sues him in a court of law, Lakami de Rebbe, in front of Rebbe. Why? Because he didn't live up to his promise. He didn't teach the Eved Levashel Elif Mine Tavshilin, Kim Shmonamils. He was derelict, and he only taught him 800 instead of 1,000. Omer Rebbe was amazed. Avosenu, our forefathers who lived through the Churban Abayis, Amru, they declared, Nashinu Miloshin Shichacha, Lashinu Tova. In other words, Klomar Yedanu Macholim Udvarim Tovim V'Shachachnu Osam. So our forefathers who were there at the time of the Churban, they declare that we forgot the good, the good foods and how to prepare them. Is anu, we who are after the Churban, is hafilu beinenu lo re'inu. We never even saw how you could take these things and make them into good, healthy additions. Rav Ovid le Hilula le Rabbi Shimon Berebi. So Rav was at the wedding, and apparently he was the MC of the wedding. He would make the brachas and so forth. And just 1 second. Howie, I'm going to call you back in 2 minutes. I'm just finishing the Daf Yomi Shir. Is that okay? Sorry, I left my phone on accidentally. So again, Rebbe Ovid Lehi Lula Le Rabbi Shimon Berebi. So he prepared the chasana for Rabbi Shimon Berebi. Chosav al Beis Ginona, he wrote on the chuppah, Esrim v'arba alfin riboin dinrim. I guess he's kind of writing almost like a shtar or something. And he wrote that 24,000 ribuos dinarim, I guess these are kinds of dinarim, nafku al beis kinona dein. He wrote the price tag. How much did it cost him to prepare the entire Sudas Nesuin? It was 24,000 rivos dinrim. I think he tells you how much that's worth. Oh, he tells you it's 24 million dinrim. And apparently this is just a remez or a guzma. V'lo azmene lebar kapara. And Rebbe did not invite Bar Kapar to the wedding. So Bar Kapar is offended. Omar Le, he says to Rebbe, Imli over ritzono kach. Li oser ritzono lachas kama v'kama. Look at those who violate the will of God, and yet God is mashpia them so much tova. These are the mafiosos who live in the fancy houses and they drive the most expensive cars. Is how much more so should HaKadosh Baruch Hu mashpia tova for those who fulfill His will. Azmene. So Rebbe decided to invite Bar Kapar to the wedding. It's not clear why he didn't want to invite him to L'chatchila. Oh, he says because apparently Bar Kapara was a jokester, and he's a badchen, and Rebbe didn't want a badchen. Anyway, so somehow he put it out of his mind. He didn't invite him. Omar, now Bar Kapara says Liotze Ritzono Bolomazekach is Lolma Bolachas Kama Kama. If HaKadosh Baruch is mashpia tova in this world for the people who fulfill His will, how much more so in the next world? Yomi de Machayach Bei Rebbe Asya Purinosa Lialma. On the day that Rebbe smiled, Puranas came into the world. And that's paradoxical. He says, "Atam shebiyom shesochak Rebbe oyimagia Puranas liolam lefisha Rebbe oyirosh golas Yisrael v'oyelo litztayer al churban beis hamikdash al golas. The kemen shayosher gadol kshayasochek hoyenira ki'ilu she'einu mitztayer." Like it looked like he wasn't in tsar, despite the churban. Amalei, so Rebbe says Bar Kapara, lo tavad chinan. Don't crack any jokes. Don't make me laugh, because it's going to bring Puranas into the world. V'yavelecha arvin grive chite, and I'm going to pay you as a reward for this 40 midos of chitin. Amalei, so Bar Kapara says to Rebbe, lichse mar. Here on the note, the chol griva de beina shakilna. Okay, this is already, I think, for tomorrow. Let's, because I see they're calling me from Efrat. So let's stop here. Now, tomorrow is Thursday.